Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Talent Optimization Podcast. We are chatting about HR self-care this month, and I am so curious. How are you? How are you doing in your day-to-day work right now? And sometimes we never take that second for ourselves to really get in to our body and figure out how are we? So with that, I'll give you a minute and welcome you again to the Talent Optimization Podcast. My name is Tracy Shirk, and I have an amazing special guest with me today with Nicole Greer. So Nicole, welcome.
Thank you for having me. How are you, Tracy?
I'm good. And how are you today?
Well, I am vibrant, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So that means I'm on mission. I'm energized. I'm ready to go. I know my mission. That's what we're here for.
It is. It is. And so often when I'm chatting, HR for HR, right? When I'm chatting with our HR colleagues, I'm tired, right? And so, that question of, hey, how do we develop some really great habits as HR leaders? And I'm curious, Nicole, how do we develop really great habits for HR leaders?
Well, I think one of the things that we can do for great habits is to sit back and really take a look at what are the things that we need. So I think the number one habit that an HR person needs to do is they need to have some pockets of time inside of their weekly, daily schedule where they are simply by themselves and have a little time for reflection. We can have our offices overflowing with people every 5 minutes, the phone ringing, the email going, the people at the front door waiting to come in to talk to us. And I think that having pockets of time to actually have reflection is a huge habit that human resource professionals need to have for themselves. Time to slow down and think about what is going on.
Yeah, I love that. What's so funny is I had a colleague look at me one day and go, Tracy, you have not created any time for yourself to think and created the time to truly nurture your team. When are you going to do that? I'm like,
right.
Oh, that's such a great observation.
Yeah, and I think I have a little formula that might help people to kind of think about that. Human resources does need to be available if there are emergencies and things like that. People are sick. I get there's a lot of things that are rise to the level that people need immediate attention. But if you could kind of try to set up your week with 3 types of days, I think is really important. The first type of day is a day what I call an on day, which is a day where you're going to take all of your appointments, set up all of the time that you're going to interface with people one-on-one, and really be on stage, be, doing the stuff that you do in terms of servicing people and taking care of people, doing your internal customer service. And then I think another type of day is to have the kind of day that you were just referring to, which is what I call an in day. A day that you might have yourself in your office with your door closed, doing some serious thinking, working on strategic plans, and having somebody else kind of, buffer for you while you have a day where you can actually think things through and get some really quality time, some strategic thinking done. And then I think the other thing we need to do in terms of time is have a true off day. I think sometimes human resource professionals end up giving out their cell phone. They're available 24/7, 365. This is not healthy. And we've got to have a true off day. And a true off day is really when you put your head on the pillow until the next time you put your head on the pillow, you didn't talk, touch, do anything with human resources for a 24-hour period. We do actually need time to rejuvenate and to get ourselves back in a healthy pace. So I think that's the number one habit is really controlling the time that you have and where you're investing it. And I think too, oh, go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things for our listeners is, you will receive, what works for others. And the key here is to kind of look at that and go, I haven't tried that. You know what? I'm going to give that a try. And if it works, fantastic, then you can pick it up as a habit. And if it doesn't, then leave it because it's not serving you.
Yeah. And, the thing about the in, on, and off days is that, if you have people, here's the second habit I think of great human resource professionals is that they have somebody who knows how to do everything they know how to do. Like, get the next person in line ready to do your job so that you can truly have those in days where you get to shut your door. I think people have been talking about open door policy for a long time. And I think there's some kind of confusion about an open door policy. An open door policy doesn't mean you can come open my door any old time you want to. An open door policy means I will certainly put you on my calendar anytime that's convenient for both of us. That's really what an open door policy is. It's not this, revolving door people get to come and go every 5 minutes. And so, setting
Yeah,
somebody up cross trained for you is a fantastic thing to do. A second habit.
yeah, absolutely. And I think along with that is setting boundaries, right? Like, what
Hmm.
are those boundaries? One of those is sometimes it's just ensuring that, hey, if that door's open, please at least knock, because then I can tell you if I am in the space to be available for you. Just because you're available does not necessarily mean I'm available for you. And if I'm not available for you in that moment, I'm not going to be able to best serve you in that moment. And there is a hugely powerful word, and it's called no,
That's
or
exactly
not right
right.
now. And it doesn't mean not forever, but by saying yes, are we doing the best to serve that person in front of us? And often that answer is no. And let's find a time that works for both of us. So I love dovetailing on what you just said. So thank you.
Of course, of course. Yeah. And so a third habit that I think is so important for human resource folks is to make your department or your area fun. And so, I'm going to tell you a story about Ruth. And so, there's a woman, she is the director of human resources up in the city of Salisbury, North Carolina. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I've had the privilege of working alongside Ruth for about, gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or something like that. And she put together a document called the Salisbury Way. And she got support from her town manager and the other executives that run the city. And they put this thing together and they basically said, this is, kind of how we roll. This is how we behave. And it had a list of character traits, behaviors. It was basically a mission statement, how to show up as a great employee at the city of Salisbury. And when you walk into her office, she has these giant letters as big, like 5 foot tall, as big as me, letters that say WAY. And then around the lobby, she has all of these different things in terms of the credos and the phrases that she uses in the Salisbury Way. They're framed on the wall. You walk in, they have like a thing you spin. And when you spin, it'll stop and it says you get a free Kit Kat today or you get a free hug from HR. I mean, they have all these fun things that are going on. So all of her little toys and her games and her things and her stuff, they change all the time, but people love to go to HR. And I think some folks, unfortunately, probably not your listeners, but the folks that have been in HR a long time, they don't get to their SURE meetings. They're not keeping up with the times. The HR department can be kind of seen as the principal's office sometimes. And that is not the case with Ruth. When people like stop into HR to say hi, because they might get a free Kit Kat or a hug from an HR personnel. And that's what I think a great habit is to make HR a fun place. So
Right.
sometimes she'll send out a very serious email about COVID, but then a week later she'll send out something, a funny meme about HR or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think making it fun in HR is a great habit.
Absolutely. And I love that. So for our, SHRM listeners, that follow SHRM, you've probably heard the name Steve Brown, and Steve's been on the podcast, so we'll include his. But for those folks that are in our Inspire program that's currently going on, we mention a lot of Steve's book, HR on Purpose and HR Rising, and Steve, has his kaleidoscope and I have my hand, it's like your hand's always in it. And I know that our listeners are not going to be able to see. Nicole and I are actually talking to each other via Zoom. So I've got these little hands that I will hand out. They're creepy. And if you're in any of our programs, I talk about my creepy hands, but it is a reminder that your hand is in anything and your hand is in you taking care of yourself as well. And so, I've got an easy button on my desk and all these things. I've got a bus, right? Like,
Right, right. I
and
love it.
so it's like, if you want to see a podcast that is hilarious that you can watch on toys, there's one that I did with Titus Talent Strategies, Jonathan Reynolds, that will link as well, but make it fun. And there's so many examples of that. So thank you for bringing up Ruth. Steve Brown is a great one. Jonathan at Titus, is a great one. There's so many fun ways to really align, because it doesn't, like, we can't be serious all the time. We're human. We need to have fun.
That's right. That's right. And I think finally, a fourth habit of HR is to get out of your office and get out and get with your people. I think this means so much. I know it means so much is when they can see the folks that are in the HR department come down to the floor of the manufacturing organization, come down to the front lines of what's going on, leave the home office, drive across town, go to a location where people are working and making things happen, and just simply to check in, see how people are doing, and again, dovetailing with the fun thing we just said. So I think getting out of your office, plus, if you build relationships with your employees, I mean, it's so much easier when there is something serious or something
Yeah.
that you need to talk to them about, because now you've got a bond, and it isn't that weird, cold beginning place and you're already in a very serious place. If you've already got some kind of relationship and you know their families, you know their story, you know what they do, you know the quality of their work, I think that gives you a lot of context for anything that you might need to handle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I think is so fun is, and I'm going to challenge everyone on this, is as you're taking care of yourselves, connection is such a key piece. And when you connect, you really get to know your folks. So a 30-day challenge is, have you met every person? Do you know what department they work in and why they come to work every day? What
Yeah,
is that?
absolutely. Yeah,
So that's a fun 30-day challenge for you.
yeah.
And
you know
that's not just for small organizations. I mean, 200-person organization, you can figure that out in 30 days. And it's all about the connection.
Yeah, I've got a client over in Eastern Kentucky, and the company's called Double Quick. And the gentleman who started the company started it in the 1950s, and he is almost 90 years old. And his daughter is now the CEO, and her name is Missy. She's an amazing woman. But Don, the dad, who's, like I said, is almost 90, still is driving and is a great driver and very cognizant and knows what's going on. He gets in his car and he drives around to his 42 convenience stores, and he has a little notebook he keeps with him, and he writes down the name of the manager, people that work there, names of their kids, and then when he gets to that location, he can open up his little notebook and he can say, "Oh, so and so's the manager, so and so's the food service manager," and he goes in. He's got his notes. Oh my gosh, they worship. They worship this guy. They think he is fantastic, and he is fantastic. And just imagine if all of our HR folks were out there, moving and grooving like that, and how much love and respect HR would get, which
Yeah.
you deserve it anyways. But that would just enhance the love and respect that we really need to give to our HR folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of talk, I know one of the key things that you have in the coaching that you do is you have something called the Shine model. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Yeah. So I came up with my own coaching model because after working and coaching for, I don't know, 10 years or so, I was like, I'm starting to see like this little thread of things that human beings need to work on. And so I love to share it with my HR friends because I think it's a great framework. And so it's SHINE. It's an acronym, and the S stands for self-assessment. And I think anytime we're dealing with an individual, with a human, the first thing we want to invite them to do is really turn the mirror inward, and ask them, what's going on with you, right? So human beings need to self-assess. And so the number one question I ask people when I'm coaching them is, what is it like to experience you? And this is a fantastic question, because people oftentimes don't really think about the ramifications of how they move in the world, right? Like, so I don't know if you've ever heard this one, Tracy, but people are saying, I don't care what people think. Well, wait a minute. You have to care what people think. I mean, we're on a team here. We're part of an organization. You have to care what people think. And it really calls people into accountability, which is hugely a problem out there right now, is personal accountability. And so to have people stop to think, what is it like to experience you, is very, very big. And so, the self-assessment piece begins there is basically what do you think it is, to be around you? And then from there, we can do all sorts of other things. And I know that you have a lot of tools, Tracy, in your toolbox for people to self-assess. You have several assessments that you use. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Yep. We use predictive index quite frequently. Then of
Yeah,
course we do a lot of coaching as well.
right.
Um, and what I love is those questions are not questions that, I've necessarily looked at. And I loved that question about how do others experience you?
That's right, that's right, and so the predictive index or the strengths finder or the Myers-Briggs or whatever, there's a whole cadre of, assessments out there that people use, but that's one thing that you can do. But I think really the most important thing is to just stop and think about every interaction I have, am I, what Liz Wiseman in her book, would call, am I a multiplier or am I a diminisher?
Mhm.
When I walk in the room, do I make things better or do I walk in the room and make things worse, right?
Right.
So really, just some really great self-assessment. So when we sit down with people and we're coaching, counseling them, as we want them to turn the mirror inward and think about what it is like to experience them. So the second thing is the H. Is the H in the Shine coaching methodology is about habits, and that's why we started out with our 4 habits that we came up with for HR folks. But I think really the quality of the habits you have are going to give you the quality of the life that you have. And so stopping to again self-assess back at the S, what are the habits that I have in place that are making my life fantastic? And then what habits do I have in place that are, slaying me? And we all have one. And the funny thing is sometimes, Tracy, I'll ask a room full of people, what habit do you have that really makes your life amazing? And people almost struggle with that. But every once in a while you have somebody say, I exercise every day, or something like that. But if you ask people if they have bad habits, they'll tell you all of them. Everybody's like, oh, I got some terrible habits. And if you think about it, it's a little crazy. But really putting those great habits in place can make all the difference in our lives. So
Yeah.
I think, the number one thing about being a great employee is some habits of being enthusiastic, being on time, being kind, being someone who will be supportive, generous, things like that. So I think habits are huge. And then the next letter in the Shine coaching methodology is integrity. And integrity to me is enormous. And you said it earlier, which was a little bit of genius. I don't know if y'all missed it. Tracy said, why do people come to work? Like, why are they there? And integrity to me is really about people becoming self actualized. So, they're living in like calling, purpose, mission, all of those kind of things. And I don't know about you, Tracy, but when I was coming up, and I'm a lot older than Tracy, but when I was coming up, I nobody ever said to me, do you have a mission? I mean, like nobody ever asked me that. And it took me until I was like 42 years old for somebody to ask me that question. And I'm like, I don't think so, and challenge me to really get it written down. What is your mission in life? And so once you figure that out, it's kind of like work isn't a 4-letter word anymore. It's
Right.
almost like work is fun and exciting because I was born to do this work. And I think if we could help our employees do that, or understand that the work that you do could finance, fuel, or make a way for your mission in life. So coming up with a mission statement is, I think, really important. So integrity is becoming self-actualized, moving into that place where you're doing work that feels like a calling. I was born to do this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, what is that life's work for you? And if
Yeah,
you're not in it, what would it take for you to get there? And so often when we're talking with folks about this, so we have a career goal setting training that we do, it's,
wonderful.
well, I could never get there. Well, why not? Because I have to go to work every day. Well, who says you can't go to work in a different way?
Right. Yeah, because it's all mindset.
It is. It
Yes.
is.
Yes. Yes.
And when
Yes.
we talk about habits, that number one habit that's going to change your life is managing your thoughts. Are we paying attention to those thoughts that are running in our head, because those create our actions and our results.
That's 100% true. And the mission statement work that I do is I use the work of Lori Beth Jones. Are you familiar with Lori Beth Jones at
I am
all?
not. No.
Okay, well, she's written a ton of books, and one of her books is called The Path. And in that book, she has this whole formula for writing your personal mission statement for work and life. And that's when I was 42, that was the book I
Yeah.
was given. And I was like, this is
What is
revolutionary in
this?
my life.
Oh my gosh, that's
Revelatory.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I came up with my personal mission statement, and then I've helped other people come up with theirs just using Lori Beth's work. I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's no reason to reinvent what she's doing.
Right.
Um, and people get that, and it changes everything. I was working with a lady who wanted to become a certified professional organizer, a CPO.
Uh-huh.
And so she and I sat down to work on her mission statement. And long story short, she calls me one day and she's like, "Oh my God, I got it. I got it." I'm like, what'd you get?" She's like, "I got my mission statement figured out." And she took Lori Beth's work and worked with it, her formula, but she kind of, went off the board for 20 points and had that moment where she's like, "I know exactly what my mission is." And so listen to this, Tracy, is so good. She says, "Here it is, Nicole. I my mission is to restore simplicity." And so
Beautiful.
what's
Yeah.
that?
I said beautiful.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
so when she got that, can you imagine her being in a networking event and people say, "What do you do?" And she goes, "I restore simplicity." I mean, every woman's gonna be like, "Sign me up." But anyway,
Right.
yeah,
Is that at
selfish.
work? Is that in life? What are all the things?
That's right, that's right. Okay, and so the N in the SHINE coaching methodology is next right step. So you know this statistic, Tracy, but I'll repeat it to your listeners. I'm sure you've talked about this before, but only about 2 out of 10 adults have written down actionable goals that they visit regularly and work on and document.
Right.
So I think next right steps is getting your goals written down, figuring out what you're going to do, looking at them yearly, monthly, quarterly, and what are we going to get done this week?
Yeah, absolutely. And doing those daily because, again, when you write down the goals and you share it and you have the accountability, they're much more likely to happen.
That's right. That's right. And then finally, the E in the Shine coaching methodology is about 6 energies. And again, like I said, over these years, I've observed people, and really what a human being is just a big ball of energy. But there's actually 6 energies that help a human move forward in a powerful way in their life. And I know all of your human resource listeners, you see this, but I'm going to put it into a nice little 6 package for you. People have intellectual energy, they have emotional energy, spiritual energy, physical energy, social energy, and financial energy. And these are 6 places that you can coach people to fuel themselves so that they can get unstuck. A lot of times people are very, very stuck. And in the coaching process, what we're trying to do is get them to think that new thought you were just talking about a minute ago. And so you have to kind of listen. Where are they stuck exactly? So sometimes people don't know what they need to know to move forward. So we got to get some kind of learning goal in place. Sometimes they lack the emotional intelligence, or they have a bad feeling about things, and we have to invite them to have a different feeling about a situation, right? Like people
Mhm.
tell me all the time, "This is hard." Okay, what would it look like if it was easy, right?
Right.
So it's that feeling, right? Then the third thing is spiritual energy. Sometimes people don't have that enthusiasm that they need to have, or the drive, or the ambition, or the passion for something. So we've got to get tapped into that. And then, of course, if people feel bad in their body, it's very hard to work hard. That's what I know. If your back hurts, your finger hurts, your toe hurts, very hard to work.
Right.
And then sometimes we need to know other people. We need to network to get where we want to go in our career, or go in our, or to make money in the business or wherever. We need a big social energy around us. You got to have a great network. You got to be on LinkedIn. You got to talk to people like Tracy and Nicole Greer. And then finally, money, and the old thing, Tracy, where they say, people, they just want more money.
Mhm.
That's all they ever come to me for. Well, I have found that, like most of the surveys that SHRM does, that, people, the things that they want, money is usually like number 6 or 7.
Yeah.
It's really like the number one thing they really want is the spiritual energy, which is they want to do work that is meaningful and
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah. Yes. And
So,
then to be
yeah,
appreciated. We all want to be appreciated for that work that we're doing.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So as we start to kind of wrap this up, one of the ways we always wrap up our episodes is, what is a takeaway for our executives listening into our conversation today?
Takeaway for our executives. Well, you know, I would invite you to really think about what it is like to experience me. Is probably the number one thing I would invite executives to do. I have a lot of executives that you've got a whole bunch of people that are dying to understand how you got where you are.
Hmm.
And they are dying to understand your journey, and I think that they would love to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
So when I say what is like to experience you, are you being a storyteller? Are you being open to sharing your journey, how you got where you are? And I think too, being a storyteller. Gosh, that's a big question. I think a storyteller of where you've been, where you want the company to go, what you think the people that work for you are capable of. They just want to hear from you. So I
Yeah,
think, being a great
absolutely.
communicator.
And I love what you said, is just how do others experience you? And then for HR folks listening in, what's one key takeaway for them?
Yeah, I would say a key takeaway would be to go back and look at those 4 habits, and maybe for your 2023 second quarter, you would look at, what can I do to, get out and be with my people, make sure that I'm making it fun in HR, and then who works around me that I need to, cross train with, so that when I do want to have a day off, I want to take care of myself, which is what Tracy's trying to do. Create some content here for you guys to turn the mirror inward and think about how you could take care of yourself. Who could learn my job inside out, and whose job could I learn inside out, so that when we do need to step away for a day to have an in day, work on a strategic project, or have a real day off, a real vacation, somebody else could truly cover for me, so that I could reflect, I could rejuvenate, I could come back and be willing to put some new projects and programs in place.
I love it. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us today. And we will link your website and your LinkedIn in the show notes so folks can find you. And thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. It's been an absolute delight to be with everybody.
Absolutely. So thank you. And we will see you next week. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap, called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.